All right, folks, welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I'm with General Flynn. General Flynn, thank you so much for joining me once again. I kind of want to get General Flynn's State of the Union. I want to get his address to my audience and just get his perspective of the battlefield from his point of view. So, General, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. It's great to see you. I know it's been a little bit, and we're still in the middle of this thing, right? I mean, everybody sees what's happening with basically the warfare that we're involved in, whether it's lawfare, whether it's psychological operations, whether it's the pushback that Trump is getting from even I think inside of his own party.
Yeah, and that's what I'm seeing as well. The lawfare is just unprecedented. I can't even believe that we're having to put up with this. I mean, judges, politicians, they're all going after him, even after he's. So this is what I'm saying here. This is what I want to get here. And you said something about to 𝗬𝗂𝗃𝗏 or 𝗵𝗏𝗀𝗃𝗏 maybe, that when are we going to see arrests? And I'm with you on that. I'm wondering, what is it going to take for these arrests to happen? What is it going to take to stop the lawfare? It seems like, does Trump need to sign the Insurrection Act? Does something like that need to transpire? Does an event on our soil need to take place in order to have the people behind him to sign such an act like the Insurrection Act? I mean, what is it going to take to get the arrests, maybe deploy military for mass deportations? What's it going to take, General?
Yeah. First of all, I think that the sentiment that you're relaying to your audience right now is the way a lot of Americans feel. I mean, I think millions and millions of Americans are like, hey, we voted for accountability in our government. We voted to restore trust, between the American people and elements in our government, particularly the Department of Justice, the FBI. We wanted to strengthen our military. We wanted to shut the border down. We've got 300,000 children still missing out there, right? I mean, that's going to be one, that latter point, Nino, is going to be one that's going to, potentially bite the administration in the rear end. And I know that Trump is, he has mentioned it a couple of times, and the folks around him at DHS are going to have to deal with that. Never mind, the 19.5 million or even more people that we know came in here illegally, because the numbers that have to be pushed out of this country on a monthly basis, it's got to be a minimum of like 250 to maybe 300,000 a month on a monthly average. And we're nowhere near those numbers right now. So I do think that the Department of Justice, with 𝗵𝗏𝗀𝗃𝗏, 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏, and of course, Dan Bongino going back. And I know them all, I think that they're great patriots, they're great servants, but you get what happens when you go into government, and I do know this. When you go into government, especially at a senior level, they immediately, the bureaucrats surround you with all of the glitz and glamour and protocol of the office. And I'm going to tell you, these offices that we know of those individuals, you have aircraft, you have ships, you have cars, you got security, you got all the things, you got all the accoutrements of the office. And those offices come with a large amount of what I would just describe as protocol, right? And if you get enamored by that, and you get caught up with all of that, that can be a very dangerous thing. And that's what I hope is not happening. And I hope that people like Bongino, people like Cash, and people like Bondi are not there. They're like, hey, I don't care about that stuff. What I care about is accountability, the president's agenda. We have to go after these people that put us into this situation, because the country right now is still going through the midst of a coup. I mean, this coup started back in the 2015 timeframe, not necessarily directly targeting Trump in 2015.
Targeting you.
Well, and I was part of it. I definitely was. I was probably one of the principal guys. But they targeted whoever was going to be the candidate to run again, and it just so happened to be Trump. And that began this cascade effect of going after, anybody that got in their way. And who is THEIR? It is the left, progressive left, that is still run by people, definitely John Brennan, definitely Jim Clapper. You got people like Susan Rice. I mean, look at what we just learned today. At least I learned it today in the last 24 hours, that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, has a defense policy board That's a big deal. This is a big deal. And you got people, the likes of which are Susan Rice. Susan Rice is on the board. So here's 3 months into Pete Hegseth's tenure as Secretary of Defense, and one of his principal advisors, one of the principal advisory boards, the Defense Policy Board, is Susan Rice.
I mean, like their tentacles are already intertwined with Trump.
They're everywhere, and there's a couple of others on there that are so vitriolic anti-Trump, but yet they're still on this policy board. And they can go, well, I haven't really paid any attention to it. It doesn't matter. These people still have a foot in the door, and they're still influencing the military and security state complex. So one of the things that back to the original gist of your question, Trump is going to have to create some conditions here for those on his team to be able to take the action that they're going to need to take. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean, a declaration of some type of national emergency? I mean, this is not about wanting or needing people to like you anymore.
Right. It's time to go to work. It's time to go to work.
It is time to go to work.
Let me read this from Bannon. Bannon says the deep state isn't just alive, it's winning. And MAGA is about to explode if there are no arrests soon. Steve Bannon just went scorched earth, torching the highest levels of government for failing to do one thing the base demands: crush the deep state. And he made it crystal clear: MAGA is done waiting. Bannon unloaded. And if the guys around Hegseth, if there's indictments or investigations going on, and there's no indictments, there's no release of the Epstein files, and there's no investigation of Brennan and the 51, and you're not spending your time on that, and if somehow gets delivered and diverted over this, it's going to be a firestorm from the MAGA base, he's saying. So basically he's saying, we got to see justice. That's what we put Trump in there for.
We have to have accountability. Adam Schiff, a U.S. senator now, right? I mean, this guy lied through his teeth. And there was the reports the other day where he and Brennan were meeting secretly for in some office in the CIA or maybe somewhere else on Washington, D.C. So all this has to be investigated. I just got off of an hour-long discussion this morning, about Russiagate, in a much, much greater detail. So I haven't.
That's what Cash is focusing on right now, correct?
Well, I don't know if it's Cash. I just would tell you that the details that we now know from the release of the Russiagate files, from other evidence that has come forward, whistleblowers and some other people. So we now know when this thing began, the details of how they did it, why they did it, and then who actually was behind it. And clearly, John Brennan is one of the pointy end of the spear type of guys that was behind it. But there's others. So, what Durham failed to do, and what I just learned was that there were people on Durham's team within his team that wanted indictments and they wanted arrests. Okay. And Durham, company guy, a company man, he did not do it. He refused to do it. So we now know these things. Okay. So back to what's going on now. Now, for me, I know, because I know how I work, and I know what my work ethic is and what my work ethic was when I was in the military. There was very, very few days that I would give myself off. I didn't mean that I didn't take a day off or here or there, and I would, but there was very few, and people that work with me for the years that I was in the military, they know, like I worked like a fiend. I want to see people living in their offices. I don't want to see people too much on the news. I don't want to see people, at these, sporting events. If Trump wants to do that, fine, because for him, it's about, being presidential and getting out there among the people and, and making them feel good about themselves. But everybody else, they should be living in their offices, and they should be, and I say that metaphorically, but they should be living what it is that they're supposed to do, because we don't have that much time. So I agree with Steve Bannon wholeheartedly. Because I'm going to tell you, I get it every single day. Every day I have people. I mean, I sit here and I'll bet you by the time I get done with you, I'll have another 200 text messages from people that are going, when is something going to happen? Oh my God, we just learned this. Another great podcaster out there who's out there today. I believe it was today. Senator Ron Johnson was on with this other great podcaster. You know, I'll it's Benny, right? And I mean, he's talking about 9/11. He's talking about the falsehoods of 9/11. And so
inside job. Everyone common sense knows this by now.
Yeah, I mean, you saw Curt Weldon, the former Congressman Curt Weldon gave the interview on Tucker just recently. I mean, we cannot discount these. We can't go, these are crazy people. These are like me. I'm not a crazy guy. I know what happened. And so, Curt Weldon, former congressman, was going to be the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, a very powerful guy. Senator Ron Johnson. I mean, I know him. He's such a good guy, and he's the one that really broke a lot of craziness, right? And now he's like, hey, we got to look at this 9/11. So just to take a step back, based on what Bannon has, said, and what I'm saying is the American people at a certain point, if we're like sitting there, Nino, and we're going, okay, all this crap happened, all this shit happened, excuse my Irish, but all this stuff happened and nobody's being held to account. Nobody, zero. And these people are still out there beating the crap out of Trump, beating the crap out of 𝗬𝗃𝗧𝗂𝗏 and everybody. I mean, nothing happens. And so what happened? We walk a few guys out of the Pentagon. We walk a few guys out of the National Security Council that did they leak something? If they leak something, that's a crime. If they leak something, if they didn't, then, okay, you just don't trust them anymore. Okay, you don't trust them anymore. Well, then say that. But if you're, there's no more like, don't fire anybody, have them detained. And let's go back to the Epstein files, okay? So what happened when, 𝗵𝗶𝗀, Attorney General, said, hey, I've seen it all. It's been on my desk, blah, blah, blah. Nothing. And then when they do the big charade kind of to the American people, I mean, I felt bad because it's like crazy.
It was nothing. It was a nothing burger.
They used a couple of podcasters there at the White House to hand them binders and stuff. But then what did they do? What she did was she says, oh, well, I got upset. The New York field office head of the FBI, basically lied to me. Okay, well, if he lied to you, then he should be arrested. But so what did you do? Nothing. You fired him. Okay, instead of doing what you should have done was you should have removed his security clearance. You should have put him under house arrest. You should have let him know that you're starting an investigation, not only into his lying, but maybe other nefarious activities. The New York field office head, the assistant director in charge of the New York field office, is one of the top 10 FBI leaders in the country, okay, within the top 10. I mean, it's an assistant director.
But she said that it was a national security risk, and what I'm thinking is, okay, what's a bigger national security risk? These people.
So that guy, this is what pisses Americans off, Nino. That guy walked out of that building, of his office in New York. This is a couple of weeks back. Everybody go look at it. And he walks out to a bagpipes parade, right? His employees are all crying on the streets of New York while he's walking out. That guy should have never been fired. He should have been detained and held, and he should have had his passport taken. I mean, that's how you hold somebody accountable and then conduct an investigation. And if the Attorney General determined that an assistant director of the FBI lied to her, that's what I got to accuse.
Well, where my mind goes with this is that there's got to be some very, very powerful people on this list that can just disrupt the whole system. But to me, like, what's a bigger national security risk? A bunch of powerful predators walking around targeting our children. That's a big national security risk for me. That's what I would think. I mean, these people need to be taken off the street. They're still being allowed to get away with this and play like it's just any other day again. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's what I said about, one of the big issues with the Homeland Security right now, and this deportation campaign that's ongoing, and there's some bright lights there. Bukele down in El Salvador. He's done us a big favor. But I think the number there, I think the jail he's got can hold like 40,000. That's nothing. We got to be sending like 300,000 out a month right now. But the one thing that's going to start to bubble up, and it has, because I'm in the middle of it here to a degree because we're trying to help. My nonprofit does stuff with trying to protect children, right? So we still have 300,000 quote,
missing
300,000 children missing that our government was aware of. Our government put them into the system and then either lost them or allowed them to be trafficked. So where is the accountability there, right? And I know because I'm aware of some other undercover stuff that's going on, that people are looking inside of the government, and there's people in the government now that are laughing at the president of the United States' agenda and going, we'll just wait them out. We'll just wait them out.
That's what I'm okay. So that's what I'm hearing here on the border. So I have friends that own businesses here. That they obviously had a lot of illegals working for them here in El Paso on the border, and they're not showing up to work, but everyone's just waiting it out. They're like, Trump, first of all, what they're hoping for is another assassination attempt, or that a Democrat steps in 2028, and then this all just goes away and it's business back to business as usual.
Yeah.
So that's what they're waiting on. They're just waiting this out.
If a Democrat comes in 2028, we're done. Our nation is over. Our constitutional republic is at the end of its experiment, right? So we're done. And I don't even want to think about that yet. We have about a year. Trump's got maybe a year, and I mean a year, not 4 years, about a year, because once we go into the 2026 time frame, then
it's got to be a different landscape.
Everybody's going to start talking about the elections, and the noise level will go up for there. And you got senators and congressmen and all. I'm in the middle of things that I get asked to do now, like just some of the campaigning that's going on for like the New Jersey governor, right? And others that are out there that are very important for Trump to be part of. So, yeah. So this idea about declaring a national emergency at the southern border of the United States that you got showing on the screen.
But see the arrow pointing to January 20th. So with written 90 days of the date of this proclamation, that would have been April 20th.
Right.
So Sunday. So he could do this so now he's getting the report should be on his desk. He could sign the Insurrection Act from here, right? I mean, it says here, Homeland Security shall submit a joint report to the president about the conditions of the southern border of the United States and any recommendations regarding additional actions that may be necessary to obtain complete operational control of the southern border, including whether to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807.
Yeah. So let's just talk about the role and the partnership between DHS and the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Defense. And I think that, prior, maybe it did catch the beginning, but, where you talked about, where you're at, you're seeing a lot more military down there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that the president designated the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, so they now can be attacked by elements of the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense now, in fact, that's their, one of their roles and responsibilities is to go after these foreign terrorist organizations.
But what about the judges that are stalling the process? Aren't they aiding and abetting?
Yeah, I mean, that's another element of a threat to our country, because the American people do not trust our rule of law based system because of these judges and of what the Department of Justice did to Trump back when he was the 45th president, what Biden did to the Sixers and many others, people that stood outside of Planned Parenthood, Christians who stood outside of Planned Parenthood clinics that got arrested and thrown in prison. People like Tina Peters, who was doing her job as an election commissioner in the state of Colorado, they got her in jail for 9 years. I mean, the American people don't trust our justice system. Now you throw these judges in. This is a separate than this national emergency that you're talking about. You throw these judges in, and the way that federal judges particularly at the district level, some appeals, but particularly at the district level, are pushing back on the ability for the executive branch, principally the President of the United States, to be able to carry out his duties and responsibilities to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and this country. Justice Roberts, at the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, he must step in. He doesn't have a choice, because the American people are going, hey, what the heck is going on here? We voted for a president. This is our system of government. The president is supposed to execute things to make sure that he protects the safety and security.
Flynn, General, it seems like, this is starting to be 2016 all over again. I mean, it's almost like they were shell shocked that they lost the election because they thought they had it in the bag, and I believe it got the steal got stopped in real time. But so now they're shell shocked. They're coming out of it. They're reorganizing. They're continuing their efforts with protest. They now got this 𝗬𝗓𝗂𝗓𝗂 out there, the new 𝗬𝗂 poster
Yeah.
boy and martyr
Yeah.
of the new protest, and I think they're going to be doing the La Raza protests. And I think that's what they're getting ready to do.
They'll go from this guy to something else to something
Right.
else.
And so why aren't we going in and arresting these judges that are committing the lawfare? I mean, if they're a terrorist organization, I mean, what's the minutia here? Why is this being held up? Can you please help me understand?
I don't think it's a matter of arresting the judges. I think that what President Trump's that's not the direction that we want to go. What we want to do is we want to use the rule of law effectively. Well, I mean, people can say that, but we want to use the rule of law effectively. But I will tell you that the President of the United States has extraordinary authority as President of the United States, and he can make some decisions about things like he can basically just tell the media to shut up. That guy's not coming back from El Salvador. If the left wants to keep lying about this crap, let them lie about it.
But if the judges are holding up the process of sending Venezuelan gang members, which are a terrorist organization, aren't they aiding and abetting and harboring terrorists?
You know what Trump ought to do, and his press secretary ought to do? They ought to throw out all of the mainstream media, throw them off the White House lawn, throw them out of the press room. These people are doing nothing but lying and propagandizing and deceiving the American people, and that's what they continue to do. National Public Radio had a story. If it's fake, say it's fake, and apparently the administration is saying it's fake. Well, then you know what? Stop funding the National Public Radio. Stop funding these organizations. Because I know one of the things you wanted to talk about was things like USAID. I mean, these are organizations that belong to the executive branch or are given government grants, to be able to be an unbiased communications. That's one element. I would do that immediately. Get these.
So what are the deep state funding? It's the USAID, the cartels, obviously. So we've taken away the funding from the USAID. We exposed that. How else is the deep state being funded right now that you know of?
I'll tell you how they're being funded. You have billions and billions and billions, okay? And I mean multi-billions, probably getting close into the T word, right? trillion levels of money that go into parts of the Defense Department and certainly the U.S. intelligence community. And a lot of that money is black money. It goes through into black accounts.
Southern
black
border,
budgets.
I mean, drugs,
well,
is that
some
what
of
it is?
So it's wherever they want it to go. And this is something that I kind of thought that I'm hoping that Elon sticks around. I don't want Elon to leave. I want Doge. I want Elon to get a couple more of these real smart savants that are on that team, and I want them to dig into the intel community, because I can tell you, because I do know this, because I had Vice President Mike Pence in a room with me, when I was still the National Security Advisor, and I had the entire team that handled some of this stuff at the Situation Room in the White House, grilling them, because I know this stuff. So there's a lot of money that needs to be audited in the U.S. intelligence community. And as soon as Elon tries to start to go into the U.S. intelligence community, believe me, you're going to have all kinds of pushback. They'll go nuts. I think that they ought to take advantage of 𝗬𝗏𝗎𝗓 𝗫𝗓𝗓, because I think 𝗬𝗏𝗎𝗓𝗫𝗓𝗓, she's got the toughness and the resiliency to stand up against this stuff. I don't know of any others in the intel community right now, leader-wise. Nobody in the Department of Defense and none of the other, sort of outside agencies, FBI, CIA, that has her toughness. I mean, if I were 𝗬𝗏𝗎𝗓, if I were in that role, I would say, 𝗬𝗏𝗎𝗓, you need to grab Elon, you need to grab the president, and you need to say, I need a full review, and let me just show you some of these things. Yeah, you can go, well, it's classified, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have you guys all dig into this, because I guarantee in 30 days, they're going to find billions of dollars that are going to nefarious purposes that do not meet President Trump's agenda, period. I guarantee it.
Okay, before I let you go, I know you're short on time, but I want to talk about China real quick, and I want to throw an analogy out there. So, boxing analogy. It feels like to me like we're watching Trump fight the deep state. It's a first, second, third round. Bam, bam, bam. He's dropped them 3 times. They're out there on Queer Street. They're walking around. They don't know where they're at. And then all of a sudden, Trump gets on his bike and he's just working the jab. And you're like, why is he carrying these guys? What's going on here? Take him out. Take them out. Why is he letting them get their legs back? That's what it feels like to me. I feel like he's fighting them and he's allowing them to get their breath and get their legs back.
Yeah.
Makes
I think
sense?
that there should, I mean, I absolutely, I was hoping that we would see a lot more resignations, probably some.
It was starting like that. It looked like it was going that direction.
I want to see more removals of people. I mean, what I just said at the beginning of the show, Nino, about Susan Rice still being on the Defense Policy Board. So that tells you that they're not digging into the places that they need to look at some of these people. And frankly, there, as Pete Hegseth is learning, there's something going on in the Department of Defense. And there's some people over there that brought these people in. And I'm not saying those guys that they got rid of are good, bad, or indifferent. Just that there's a lack of confidence. And when there's a lack of confidence at that level, and the American people are visibly seeing this, the American people begin to have, we start to lose confidence. And we're like, okay, shoot, I thought this stuff was happening. Why? Make America great again. Let's get rid of some of these people. We got people in the FBI. We got people in the CIA. We got people in the Department of Defense. We got people over at the State Department that are still there. And they're not, what they'll do, like I'm aware of, they're going to sit there and go, well, we're just going to wait them out. Another year goes by.
Exactly.
They'll worry about elections and we can stop worrying about Trump. Trump is going to need to take executive action in order to preserve, protect, and defend, the Constitution.
So you think that's their tactic right now? They're just kind of like that fighter that's holding on for survival right now, just trying to make it through the round.
Whatever they call it, the roped-a-dope, right? The Muhammad Ali.
Well, they're holding on. They're buying time. They're stinking up the room. They're just an explosive fighter like a Mike Tyson, like myself. They grab you, they hold on to you, they take you down, they try to take you into the deep water and drown you. And it seems like that's what they're trying to do right now. Let me ask you one last question here.
Distraction. You know what it is too, because you'll know this as a boxer. It's like distraction, deception. It's you go in and you're fighting a guy.
Getting behind the ref, using the ref to get out of the way.
You go in there and you're fighting a guy who, started off with his right hand because he's a right-handed guy, but all of a sudden he changes, does the 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who was really good at that,
Yeah.
I mean, so they adapt. I mean, these are not stupid people. And
we got to just go for the kill, take them out.
Yeah.
That's what
you have to. I mean, I do believe that there's sufficient evidence to start and to basically start indicting people. You know what? Maybe there's a secret grand jury in Washington D.C. that's sequestered and it's being run on the side and we don't know about it and they're getting ready to drop a whole bunch of indictments on people. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think that that's the case, but it better start happening. And when everybody goes, well, we haven't even been here 100 days. What is so magical about 100 days? Hey, I mean, Trump said day one, I'm going to do this. Day one, I'm going to do that. Day one, I'm going to do this. And in a couple of cases he did. But then, his team comes in and it's like, okay, well, we're waiting. I
think they might be getting threatened. Their families are getting threatened, something like that, and it's making them drag their feet. That's what I think's happening. Just I
do know that there's threats out there because I keep getting them.
Right. So that has to be reality.
If I'm getting them, they're getting them.
Yeah. So let me ask you one last question here about China. So the tariffs are on China. I think what are they, 140% now or something crazy? What do you think their move is? What do they do from here? They're collapsing as we record this podcast. I mean, but they're still conducting military exercises. They're still surrounding Taiwan. It looks like they're just going to go for it, in my opinion. I think that's the only move because they're not going to take a bended knee to America with the whole world watching.
Yeah. Here's my thoughts. Xi is not going to lose face.
No.
Okay? He's not going to lose face. And so he's already, you can see some of the moves that he's making around the world dealing with different countries and different countries' leaders. and not just Vietnam, but there's other parts of the world that they're in conversations with. So he's looking at, like, again, like a big chess game, right? He's looking at chess pieces and trying to make sure that he maintains some strength out there, right? I will tell you though, internal to China, and this is really where he's going to have to pay much more attention. There are a couple of cities in China that are already, they're going through a revolution, like they're striking, workers are striking. We have, when you look at things like the Yangtze River, and all this is public. I mean, a lot of this, you can find it on public available commercial imagery, right? You can go and look at activity 2 months ago on the Yangtze River, which is the river that basically has the most commercial traffic for a lot of their products, right? So a couple of months ago, Yangtze River, there's ships moving constantly. I mean, big ships, big container ships moving constantly, going out to the sea and then heading out to the ocean, right? Now you start looking at the commercial imagery and you see the ships all parked. And I mean,
wow,
hundreds and hundreds of ships, container ships.
They can't sustain that.
Empty, totally empty. They cannot sustain it. So something has to give. Something has to give. So, you got to think strategically, like what are the reactions or counteractions that Xi would do? Might he attack Taiwan? Maybe he does something, stupid and does something in Panama, as an example. We can't forget about the Suez Canal. The Chinese built a second kind of a lane through the Suez Canal. The Chinese are talking directly to 𝗬𝚌₀ in Egypt right now. A lot of commercial traffic, a lot of commerce goes through the Suez Canal. So you have to look at, where will they counter punch, right?
They're already in America, though. There's hundreds and thousands of Chinese nationalists here. So let me just propose something to you. Do you think maybe they could create a false flag in America, create the division and the chaos here, and then go attack Taiwan?
Yeah, they have enough resources right here in the United States of America, either control of certain institutions of government and institutions of America, let's just say colleges and universities as an institution, but they also have control over these now designated foreign terrorist organizations, right? These cartels. And the cartels both come out of Mexico, but they also come out of Canada. They also come out of Russia. So these essentially these drug or criminal cartels that are now designated as foreign terrorist organizations here inside of our country. These are large blocks of criminal elements inside of the United States of America, in some cases controlling our cities, certainly controlling politicians. And Trump, I think, we've got the DHS, and I see what DHS is trying to do. You got to be able to juggle a couple of balls here, Nino. Okay, the leaders have got to be able to juggle a couple of balls. And what we're talking about right now is, are we doing this effectively? Are we juggling? Is DHS juggling these balls internally? Are they doing it? Are they working with? Are they organized properly? Have they set up the right operations centers and the right command and control centers in our country? I mean, this is like looking at the domestic landscape of America and saying that's a battlefield. Okay? Never mind the battlefields overseas that we're involved in the Middle East and in Europe, but we have a battlefield right here. So are we organized? Because I can tell you, you got under DHS, you probably have, I think the numbers, and I'm a little bit dated, but not much. You probably have 96 fusion centers, okay, around the country, 96. And then you've got you got the EPIC down in your neighborhood there, the El Paso Intel Center. You got down in Key West, we have another 𝗪𝗓 Key West. We have these other, integrating and intelligence and operational centers that the FBI has set up in different places.
And the cartels have kind of put their tentacles through all this stuff.
We have so much shit. We have so much shit spread across this country that is not coordinated. There's very ineffective interagency coordination and task force operations, and all of them can say, "Screw you, Flynn. You don't know what you're talking about." I know exactly what I'm talking about. And what I'm saying is that one of the main and most important things that we have to do domestically is get organized, and somebody's got to be in charge. So if Trump says, "Okay, Kristi Noem, you're in charge. Get it organized, get it under control. let's start deporting, let's get a number of about 300,000 to 400,000 a month. We got to start pushing them out, meaning we got to send them someplace. Do we send them to Panama? Do we send them to down to Bukele? Bukele's going to run out of room. Do we send them down across the border of Mexico, and just say, go, and let the country of Mexico figure it out, because they let them in.
And they're just building another facility here in Fort Bliss. They're building another huge, massive holding facility. I'm like, okay, that's good. But then,
you know what that thing is? Because I'm aware of that. And there's one down in Eagle Pass too that's still there. These things hold maybe, let's just say on a good day, 100, maybe 200,000. That means that they got to fill them up and then move them out, right? So where is that happening? Is that operation? The operations center where somebody like me is standing there going, okay, we got, give me the numbers for the state of New Mexico. Give me the numbers for the state of Washington. Give me the numbers for the state of Montana. How many illegals do we got? Who's coordinating that effort? I want those guys. I want that number reduced over the next 30 days by 50%. And I want to show the results. And where are they going? We're going to send them here. And then once we send them there, we're going to move them out here. I mean, there's got to be somebody who's living and breathing this. And I know it's Tom Homan, but Tom Homan's, he doesn't have a lot of resources. He doesn't own any resources.
We're highly infiltrated.
Unless Trump gives him those resources. And so if he's got Department of Homeland Security, if he's got Department of Defense resources, assigned to him, along with actually HHS, Health and Human Services, Bobby Kennedy, there's got to be HHS resources assigned to this board, just the border operation alone. And all those resources have to respond to Tom Homan. So when Tom Homan says, jump, everybody goes, how high? 10 feet, go. And they all do it. And they all do it when he says it, not when he's got to go back for a mother may I or whatever. I mean, this is a time to organize, because if we don't, Nino, then a year from now, let's just say not a year from now, because we're already 3 months into this. So 9 months from now, okay, in the 1 year mark, let's say by next January, if we have not, and I don't think we're on track to do this right now, but if we haven't put out like 2.5, maybe 3 million by, in a year from now, I mean, literally picked them up, arrested them, throw them in a plane, bus, train, automobile, whatever, and put them out of the country. If we haven't put at least 3 million out by next January, and I don't know if we're on track to do that.
I agree with you, but you know what I've noticed, and I'm just going to say this. When I flew from here, El Paso, to San Antonio back, one thing that I found kind of astonishing, and I know the real ID is coming in, I think May 7th. I think there's they're frozen. They cannot move around freely right now in the country. And I noticed that flying from El Paso to San Antonio, because let me tell you, that plane usually is packed to the gills with illegals. And I'll be on a flight and I'll be like just crunched up, and it's always packed to the gills. This time, 70 to 100 open seats. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. Yeah. I've never seen it like this in my life. So I know they're not being allowed to travel. They're kind of in a frozen state.
Right.
That's amazing. That's what I'm observing. But the fact is, Trump has only sent off 100,000. I think it is 100,000 people. That's nothing. Yeah. There's 30 million plus here. And they're just waiting it out. 20
million came in. I mean, we need to be booting out. I mean, remember, so let's just say it's 20 million, right? So in 4 years, that would be 5 million a year. If you could do it in 4 years, it's going to have to be done much faster. And, let's be realistic and very serious right now. Can we really put 20 million people? Can we really go find 20 million and get them out of this country? Seriously, and on a bet, I probably wouldn't bet on that. So what do we go after? Prioritize the criminals, prioritize the thugs, prioritize the ones that we know that we can go get. And
as they're stalling everything, they're gonna inflame the protests with people like 𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗓. They're gonna inflame the protests.
I live in Florida. Okay, I live in Sarasota County. The other day, right down the street, this is a quiet, generally it's Florida too, right? I mean, this is the snowbird season, for Christ's sakes. Down the street, we had a protest about this guy in El Salvador. There's 250 people showed up here in this town with their signs and their placards and, and all this stuff. And I'm like thinking to myself, God, these people are so brainwashed And so it's not just that
But
and the
they're being
judges
paid to
and the
do this, right?
lawfare.
I mean, there's like crowds on demand. They can get hired to go to these protests and
Right.
shuttled in.
To me, that should be illegal. And I don't know if that's illegal. I'm not a lawyer in that regard. I've seen some of that. I've seen some of the interviews with people that said, and so like, why are we allowing this? The Attorney General, that's something that the Attorney General should come out and say, look, any of these companies that are hiring activists to go protest on streets, we're gonna start investigating these companies to say, is this a legal?
Well, it's still probably considered peaceful protesting, right? I mean, the minute one of these things turn violent, maybe that's what Trump's waiting on. He's just waiting for that one time.
Yeah,
for it to go violent, and then we can make a move.
I know that he's working his tail off. I mean, you can tell. I mean, the guy's constantly doing it, and there are others working their tails off. I just know that the sentiment of the American people right now, and Bannon is right. There is a undercurrent of MAGA unrest that want accountability, not just of the things that are happening now, but all of the things that happened in the past. Everything. I mean, from Russiagate to impeachment gate to the jail, all of that. And people were put in prison, never seeing the light of day, never seeing a judge, never having an attorney. I mean, just incredible things that happened to our country because of this very progressive, very dangerous left, communist socialist movement in this country, many of whom are in Congress. Many of them are in Congress, and many of them are in political positions around the country. California, Colorado, some in Michigan. I mean, there's Washington, Oregon, up in the New England's areas. I mean, Massachusetts. Look at the mayor of Boston, Massachusetts. I mean, they should have. As soon as she spoke up, immediately the Department of Homeland Security should have gone in there and basically taken control of certainly the federal resources and started arresting illegals in the city of Boston. And then you call the mayor out and you go, okay, mayor, are you going to stop this? Because this is a legal thing that we are doing. And if you're going to get in our way, we're going to arrest you. I've heard Tom Homan say that kind of stuff. I mean, I think once you do that, once you actually take that kind of step and take that kind of accountability, that type of action, I actually think that people are going to go, oh, shit, I don't want that to happen to me.
I agree with that.
We have to hold people accountable. Otherwise, they're going to continue to do this again and again. And we're never going to solve the problems that we need to solve in this country, Nino. And our country will be like other empires in the history of the world. We will go, the way of the wolf, so to speak.
All right. My audience will kill me if I don't ask this question, so I got to ask it. Any chance you may make a political run or presidency in 2028? Could we see a Flynn go for it?
Wow,
fight like a Flynn?
That's a first. That's a first. You know what?
Come on, that's not a first. People ask all the time.
I'm not going to answer that question. You know what?
Okay, no answer's a good answer.
Yeah, you know what I want these people to think about? I want them to think about what am I doing? I want them to think about whether I'm going to come out swinging with my left or my right. Okay, whether I might bite them, whether I might kick them. Because I'm not in a fight in a ring like a boxer, right? I think we're in a fight where it's like we have to use all the resources, particularly our brains right now, to fight back. And that's the intellectual match that's going on right now. So I want a level of uncertainty, and I know Trump is like that too, because overseas, particularly with the foreign adversaries that we're facing, I want Trump to give them a level of uncertainty overseas to make them, think twice before they, take a punch at the United States of America. And that's for China. That's for the drug cartels. That's for Iran. That's for all of them. And so in my, my answer to your question is I like I like a little bit of uncertainty.
Stay dangerous, Flynn. That's what you got to do. FlynnMovie.com, folks. FlynnMovie.com. Also the book, Fifth Generational Warfare. That's on Amazon.
That one. I'm going to tell you, if people want to know what's going on, please watch the movie. It's $3.99. You can stream it, and it's a great movie, and especially with all the files that have been released. You watch this movie in 2 hours, you're going to understand. People are going to go, holy crap! But read Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare, Intro to 5GW. They can find that at FlynnMovie.com, or they can find that at my other website, GeneralFlynn.com. I'm telling you, you read that book. Then you'll understand what it is.
You wrote it with Boone Cutler, right?
Boone Cutler is a great buddy of mine, and You know, he's sergeant retired, psychological operations, specialist. You know, my life in intelligence and information, and operations and command and control, national security. I mean, it's a bestseller. Actually, it's a bestseller without going through a publisher. We had to self-publish it because no publisher would take it.
Of course not. Flynn, thank you so much, man. You're a breath of fresh air. I love talking to you. God bless you, sir, and thank you for your service.
Anytime, anytime. God bless.